Hello, my name is Tiander Turbijn. I'm a technology specialist based in Microsoft in the Netherlands, focused on our data center and system center strategy. Today I'm going to demonstrate for you how you can realize a Hyper-V cluster patch management scenario with the help of System Center Opalis. So let's take a look what our objectives are. And the objectives are fairly simple. We would like to fully automatically patch a Hyper-V cluster. So we want to enter a host name, or that might be a cluster name. We want to select a WSUS update, automatically have all the VMs being migrated off that Hyper-V cluster node. Then we're going to patch that system through WSUS integration, and eventually we're going to trigger the host so that it is forced to install the update. We're going to check if the update has been completed and eventually move back the VMs to the original host. So in the next slide, this is actually a capture of a whiteboarding session at a customer site, and this will reflect a bit what I talked about. So I'm using Opalis to retrieve a target host name, so that will be the host name which we are going to patch. Opalis will also retrieve an update, and this can be initiated by System Center Service Manager through a idle change request. And of course we could have automatically enumerate all the updates of all the cluster node members, so we can have it fully automated in the way you would like that to be. But for this demo, Opalis is going to ask me what the target host name and update is. Then we are doing some error handling. We're actually gonna verify whether the host exists and whether the host is reachable, and then we're gonna check also whether the update exists. And if that's the case, we're going to continue with our workflow. We're going to put the host in maintenance mode, which will cause the running high available VMs to be migrated to another Hyper-V cluster node. We will keep track of which VM was running on the host we are patching, because in this scenario we are moving all the VMs back to their original host. Then we're going to approve the update within WSUS, utilizing a WSUS approval group. We're going to trigger the host to install the updates right now through a detect now instruction. We're going to check if the update has been installed successfully. Then we're going to check if the host needs a reboot or not. So we're going to check for a reboot pending status. If that's the case, we're going to reboot the host. Then we are going to disable the maintenance mode setting we earlier set. And then we're going to move all the virtual machines back to their original host. This scenario is a bit more complex because the customer where this scenario is applicable to does not have System Center Configuration Manager in place. So that would be a good reason to configure that. Because within System Center Configuration Manager, you can integrate WSUS patching, and then you will have more capabilities or possibilities to have automation through the Opalis integration pack for config man. So let's take a look at my environment. What have I running here in the background? I have a Hyper-V 2008 R2 SP1 cluster configured here, consisting of 2 cluster nodes, and on one of the nodes called Chewy, I have 2 VMs currently running. You can see here the failover cluster manager also listing the virtual machines, and I've just put it in the background so you can see the live migration going on. Although these are actually running VMs, so these are live VMs running. I did not install an operating system on them. This is not a live migration demo, but this will give me the opportunity to actually live migrate a VM. So the VMs are running, so they do not have an operating system on, and that's because you will see 100 MB as for the RAM, and this is because I have some RAM limitations going on in my test environment. So here you can see that I've no operating system configured on the system. So let's put this back so you can see the virtual machines running. So we are going to take a look at System Center Opalis. So but before we are going to do that, I'm going to show you WSUS, because that's also part of my demo environment. I currently have no updates approved, so if I click on refresh, nothing happens. I do have a approval group which is called cluster group 1, which I'm gonna use in my demo later on, and this is my cluster node which I'm going to patch, and this could consist of more cluster nodes, but for now I'm just targeting one cluster node for my demo. So this is my WSUS server, and the Hyper-V node, the host actually is going to be patched with this update. So if I click on refresh, you can see that the update has not been installed, so it's not present on the system. So we're gonna let System Center Opalis take care of that fully automated. So let's now take a look at what I have running within Opalis. So this is actually the workflow I've created, and this is what I call the master workflow. And with the initial master workflow, I'm gonna retrieve the host name and the update. So these are the variables I have defined within this workflow. So I'm interested in which host are we going to patch, what's the update number, and what's the update group, because this is the information we need later on in our workflow. So after I've retrieved this, I'm going to verify with the help of a standard out-of-the-box building block. I can ping a host, and if the host does not respond, or I cannot resolve the host, then I'm stopping this workflow because then the host isn't valid. I'm going to verify through a SQL query whether the update you've entered is also valid. And if that's the case, we're gonna start with our workflow. So first of all, we're gonna drain the host. So I'm triggering here another workflow, which is actually taking care of the virtual machine automation in the background. So I'm actually utilizing a couple of things in here. First of all, I've downloaded Charles Joy, which is who is a member of the product group, of the Opalis product group, and he has created a wonderful integration pack, really handy dandy integration pack to have much more flexibility around PowerShell scripting. And the reason I'm leveraging PowerShell in this scenario is, as I mentioned, this customer does not have configuration manager, so we can't leverage the integration pack for it. We also can't leverage the virtual machine manager integration pack for it because we are missing some control. So therefore we are utilizing PowerShell to control the WSUS behavior. In this case, I'm gonna use PowerShell, and let's take a look at that PowerShell script. We're gonna utilize a PowerShell script for smart moving the VMs and making sure that we keep track of which VM is running on my host. A lot of credit goes to Robert Hearn, who is also a member of the product group of Opalis, who has a lot of valuable blog information around PowerShell, and especially on cluster patching clusters. So what I'm doing here, I'm retrieving. So first of all, I'm loading the virtual machine manager snap-in, the VMM snap-in, and then actually I'm gonna retrieve which VMs are configured to be high available and which VMs are actually running. So that's the ones I'm concerned about, because if the VM is in a safe state, I don't care. So I can patch the host without any disruption. And this is a very important step. I'm storing the running VMs in an array so that I later on can utilize the Opalis data bus to retrieve the earlier VMs which I've moved to another system. So let's continue with this. This is the array, and eventually I'm gonna put the Hyper-V host through a VMM instruction into maintenance mode, which will initiate the live migration for me. So then I'm going over to update the host. So all the VMs have moved away. I'm going to update the host. I'm going to approve the update and assign it to a WSUS group. Then I'm going to verify through a SQL query whether that update has approved, and we're going to come back to this query, how it's built later on in the demo. But I want to make sure that the update has been approved and has been set with an action of install. Then I'm gonna do some logging into the event log, and if it was a System Center Service Manager scenario, I could leverage the Service Manager integration pack to update the change request with all the actions we're currently doing. Now I need, after the approval, I need to force the target, so I need to force the host to get the updates right now, so as soon as possible. So I'm not able to wait until the update cycle. So I'm triggering actually the host with a detect now to get the WSUS update. Then I'm gonna give the update some time, depending on your scenario. You might want to build some extra logic in here so that you make sure that the updates have been installed. And then I'm gonna force a reporting step so that the WSUS database gets the information whether the updates has been installed. And this might be in, without doing this, might give you a latency about let's say about 20 to 25 minutes on the WSUS database. So that's I don't want that, so I'm triggering the status to be reported to WSUS again. So here I'm verifying whether the update has been successfully with regards to the database on the WSUS side. So I'm having a SQL query running here, and it will check for a status of 4, which is installed, and I will show you the query later on. And if that has been successful, then we continue with the next step, and that is that we check for pending reboot. So in this case, I'm triggering a entry in the event log, because the demo I'm running now is on my Hyper-V host, which I'm currently patching. This that would mess up my my demo. So, but I do check whether there is a pending reboot setting within the registry, which is being created by WSUS. When that has completed, I'm going to end with a last step, and that is to move the VMs back to their original host. So I earlier showed you that I'm storing the I'm storing the VMs within an array, so I know which VM has been moved. So I'm retrieving that VM back so that it can run on the same original host, because in this specific scenario, the customer had a specific reason that a VM was running on a specific host. So we want to respect that, and we want to restore that back to where it came from.